on to the National League. We'll start in the National League East with the Philadelphia Phillies. I picked Nick Castellanos. He kind of had a down year last year, his first year in Philly. He only hit 263. He hit a 694 OPS. Definitely compared to what he'd done the previous 5 years, not counting 2020, was definitely a slow year for him. He dealt with some injuries as well. I think he may have been playing the year hurt for the most part. Really, if the Phillies offense, because they're without Bryce Harper now, if the Phillies offense is going to produce, Castellanos definitely is the guy that is going to help that offense out more or less. But I expect him in his second year in Philly. I know Philly can be kind of a hard place to play at first. Get a second year there, though. I think he's going to be fine. I expect him to put up more similar numbers to what he did, like with the Tigers and even with the Reds when he was in MVP talks in 2021. But he's the guy I'm looking for. I think he's just going to get right back to where originally he left off, and assuming he's healthy, he might display some of that power again that he did back in 2021 as well.
Yeah, Castellanos is one of those guys. He's an exciting player to watch, and it feels like any given day he can play like a superstar. I mean, he has in the past, and last year wasn't as great, but I think he has it. Like once Bryce Harper comes back, and they got Castellanos, like that lineup is just so awesome.
Yeah.
My guy that I'm going to be watching is Brandon Marsh, predictably. It's sort of like did the Angels screw up? Because the Phillies said when they traded for him, they knew exactly what was wrong with his swing, like why he was having some issues with the Angels. When he went to the Phillies, he 774 OPS. It's not like superstar, but that's definitely serviceable for an outfielder who can play good defense. He had a 637 OPS with the Angels, so that jumped almost 150 points just going to the Phillies. So that kind of makes me wonder, like, maybe the Angels were just missing something. But I mean, Hoppy looks great. So I think both teams are really going to benefit from that. But Marsh is going to be someone I'm watching this year, just for obvious reasons, because I'm an Angels fan. I'll always be a fan of that guy. So keeping an eye on him.
Moving on to the Atlanta Braves, I picked Bryce Elder. I think he's an early favorite to be the 5 in that rotation, and Elder did very well last year in his short stint. He started 9 games, 54 innings pitched, 3.17 ERA. He actually threw a complete game shutout in his brief stint last year. His walks are a little concerning. He had 23 walks in those 9 games, but he's a young guy. I think he's just part of the wave of young Braves players that are going to make noise, and if he puts up a good year, I totally expect that the Braves are going to try and lock him up through his arbitration and then extend it for a couple years past it. But having a big year from Bryce Elder is going to help his rotation out a lot because it's quote-unquote their weakest link at this point. So I'm excited for him, though. I think this is going to be he's a star in the making. If he can do what he did last year, the Braves got another good one just sitting right there.
Yeah, the Braves, I mean, they're pitching. They just have so many guys that have the potential to be stars. It's like there's just certain teams that do it right, and the Braves are one of them. One of my picks for them, or I guess my pick for them, is Mike Soroka. I mean, we all kind of know who he is. He has not been healthy for 2 years, 2 full seasons at least, I think. But before he got hurt, he was like turning into the ace, and he's like 21, I think, the last time he pitched healthy or pitched well or pitched at all. He had a 2.68 ERA with a 1.11 whip for like a 21-year-old. That is kind of crazy. And he had a couple years of success with that. It wasn't like just a one-time thing. If he can be healthy and be added into that rotation, that is like huge, because you're already talking about like Elder competing for the 5 spot. I mean, maybe they could run a 6-man rotation if they're worried about Soroka's health, pitch him, like make him the 6 or something. But that could just boost that team so much that just throwing in, basically just dropping an ace into the lineup that you didn't have last year. Like, it's great. He's a guy I'm going to be watching and hoping that he stays healthy.
Yeah, it would be nice to see him kind of get back to that Rookie of the Year stardom that he had before the Achilles stuff.
Yeah. Moving on to the New York Mets, I'm not gonna lie, this was actually hard for me. So I'm going with Kodai Senga, and he's another rookie sensation arm that came over from Japan this year. He had a 2.31 ERA last year in 22 games started over there. He threw 144 innings, 156 strikeouts to 49 walks. The Mets already have Scherzer and Verlander in their rotation. They're on paper, they're arguably the best in that division right now. I think if Senga can put up numbers similar to this, it's going to power the Mets to get to the playoffs again. But there's also just something about rookie sensations, especially coming over from Japan. It's always exciting to watch. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. It'll also be interesting to see if the Mets kind of limit his innings pitched, because the most innings he's ever pitched in a season is 180. So it'll be interesting to see how the Mets kind of manage his workload, because I know with like Masahiro Tanaka, the Yankees managed his workload early to kind of get him prepared for MLB compared to Japan. But down the stretch, I mean, if he's good, he's going to help his team a lot.
Yeah, he was a guy that I was thinking about picking, and then obviously I saw you picked him, and I'm like, okay, well, Steven will cover that pretty well. But he's definitely going to have a ton of eyes on him. Everyone's just curious to see what he's about, how well he's going to do in making the transition. My pick was Jose Quintana. He's a guy that was always like reliable with the Cubs. He wasn't ever like an ace, but the Cubs could rely on him to go out and give them a good game. Then he went to the Angels, and I don't know if they're cursed or something, but he was one of those free agent guys who just went there and was awful. A lot of it was bad luck stuff. Like he'd go through 3 clean innings, and then he'd come out for the 4th, and there'd be like an error on a play, and then he just wouldn't get another out, and everything would just blow up. It happened like 5 straight games, but it always seemed to be something that sparked it. But he went to the Pirates, I believe, last year and had a great season. And now he's with the Mets, and we'll see if last year was a fluke or if the fluke was the Angels' curse. But yeah, he's actually a guy I'll be watching. I always liked him with the Cubs and with the White Sox, so hopefully he does well. I'd like to see him have success.
Moving on to the Miami Marlins, they have a lot of young arms that are making their way up. For me, I'm looking at Braxton Garrett. Yeah, he had a 3.58 ERA last year. It was his best season by far. 17 starts, 1.25 whip across 80 innings. And he's got solid command as well. Only 24 walks in those 17 starts. Again, he's a young arm, though, and I think the Marlins starting rotation is a pretty open competition. Garrett is probably maybe the 5 in this rotation at this point, but I think he's more than capable of holding his own. I'm excited to watch a full season of Braxton Garrett. They got that 3-headed monster with Max Meyer when he comes back from Tommy John, Edward Cabrera, and Garrett. Garrett might end up being the best one out of them, and he wasn't even that highly touted, at least amongst those 3.
But I'm excited for him. I expect him to put up a really good year, maybe even get an all-star game bid out of it.
Yeah, that the Marlins rotation just has so much potential. Maybe the most potential in the game. I don't know, because they have so many guys who are like kind of touted as ace potential. Sixto Sanchez is another guy for them that hopefully that shoulder stays healthy. I mean, shoulders will tear careers, and that seems to be what he's had problems with. But when he's healthy, he's really good. My pick is Jesus Luzardo, another guy in the rotation who I'm kind of like, is this the year? Like he's kind of had some injury problems and here and there, and I think he had the video game injury that one year. I feel like that kind of threw off his focus too, because he has some command issues. But if he can kind of get everything together, he could have Cy Young stuff. Like even this last year, he's a 3.32 ERA, 1.04 WHIP. I mean, with a full year in consistency, that those are numbers that can play. I mean, that's really great. And I every year I'm like, is this the year that Jesus Luzardo really just blows up into that ace that he's been touted as for so long? Starting with I think the Nationals and then the A's, and the A's gave up on him too soon, I think. But Marlins gain. Hopefully he works out for them.
Moving on to the Nationals, they have a very scrappy team, to say the least. They were the worst team in baseball last year, but they had a quiet offseason, just kind of acquiring some misfit bats that don't fit in lineups. But the guy that I'm looking for and was rather surprised that this team gave up on him so quick is Jeter Downs. Granted, Downs actually, no pun intended, he had a down year last year. It was very bad. He hit 197 in the minors, 16 home runs to go with that. He had a 728 OPS, though, so that tells me that he probably had some just god-awful luck. But the Red Sox gave up on him so quick. I mean, this guy has potential to be very good, and I think the Nationals got a steal in Jeter Downs. And because of where they are as a team, he should be on the opening day roster. He should be their opening day, you name it, third baseman, shortstop, wherever they want to put him. But I think this is a chance for Downs to prove that Kyle Bloom screwed up and gave up on him way too quick, because he could have been their opening day shortstop this year. So for me, in the team of misfits, Jeter Downs is the guy that Nationals fans should be looking out for, because he has potential to really just break out onto the scene this year.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy I want to watch too. Just like you said, he had such a down year, but with that OPS, that's very promising. I mean, you don't hit 197 and have an OPS over 700 like that. That's not very common. So it shows hope. I do think Bloom kind of made some head scratchers this offseason. Not necessarily all like bad moves, but moves that just kind of made you wonder, like, is he planning things in ahead of time or just letting them happen in real time? Anyway, so I digress. My pick for the Nationals is Keibert Ruiz. I feel like this is kind of his year to prove that he's I don't know if elite catcher is the right phrase, but a catcher that's all-star quality that can kind of anchor a franchise, or at least anchor the catching duties for a franchise. He's had solid years. I mean, he was, let's see, what do I have? 251 average last year, 673 OPS, definitely room to improve, but he has a very low strikeout percentage, which means he is getting the bat on the ball. He just needs to get, I don't know if that's just bad luck. I don't know if the shift is hurting him. I hadn't actually looked into his shift numbers, but between shift limitations and just him kind of coming into his own, I expect to see a bigger year from him this year. And he's a guy I'm watching.